In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 3 different types of 22 long rifle shot shells and see if we can determine if one of these is any better than the others. Hello guys and gals, Buffalo here. Welcome back to the range. So a couple of weeks ago I posted a video shooting the CCI 22 long rifle shot shells from a revolver at varying distances just to see what the patterns look like. And I got several comments saying that I shouldn't have been shooting these, that I should have been using the crimped style, that the crimped style of 22 long rifle shot shell is much better. So I went and picked up a couple of brands of the crimped style, and if you don't know what the crimped style is, it's just the case is crimped together at the end like that. So I picked up a couple of boxes just to get to the range here and see if these are actually better than the CCI capsule style. Now I've shot these before. I've never really given any thought into which one might be better. I figured they would be about the same, but since I got those comments saying that these are significantly better than these, I thought, why not get out here and try it out? So first off, let's take a look at what each one is. This one, of course, is the CCI shot shell, number 12 shot. They're actually all 3 number 12 bird shot, which is a really tiny lead shot. This one contains 31 grains or 1/15 ounce. I don't know why they have both units of measurement on here. 1/15 ounce is actually just shy of 31 grains. It would come out to be something like 29.2 grains or something. So I don't know why both measurements. The grain is the finer measurement, so I figured that one would be the more accurate measurement at 1,000 feet per second. The Winchester doesn't give us much to go on the box. It just says number 12 shot. That's it. It doesn't give us a payload capacity, weight, velocity, anything on this box. So they're pretty vague about it. I went to the Winchester website. Couldn't find any extra information on there either. The Federal contains a 25 grain payload of number 12 shot, and that's about all the information they give us on here. Don't give us any velocity or anything like that, but I did go to their website and they advertise 1,000 feet per second, the same as the 31 grain advertised payload of the CCI. Now I can't shoot these over the chronograph and get an accurate reading because it's just a bunch of little tiny BBs, and in the case of the CCI, the plastic capsule breaks up. You've got the little wad in there that separates the shot from the powder. All that stuff going over the chronograph doesn't give us an accurate reading, so we'll have to take their word on the 1,000 feet per second on the CCI and the Federal. Again, Winchester doesn't give us anything to go by, but I would assume it would be close to 1,000 feet per second with the others. So I did decide to weigh the payloads of each of these just to see if they're close to what they're advertised at. So I cut one each of these shot shells apart and weighed the payload. Now remember, I'm just using a sample of one here. This is not anything conclusive. It's just a single data point. But that being said, the CCI payload on my scale weighed 28.4 grains. So not quite the 31 grains they're advertising. The Winchester weighed 25.5 grains, which they didn't advertise a payload weight, but that falls in line with the Federal, which advertises 25 grains, so it's probably what they were shooting for. The Federal itself had a payload weight of 26.2 grains. So they're advertising 25, they give us a little bit more. CCI was advertising 31. They don't quite get there. Here's the funny part about this. The CCI had 97 pellets total. The Winchester had 113, and the Federal had 89. The CCI and the Federal, that kind of makes sense given the payload, the actual payload weights. But why would the Winchester have 113 pellets? That's more than the other two, but the smallest payload weight. Well, let's take a look. These are the pellets from the Winchester. you can see they are not very consistent. A lot of those pellets are smaller than a number 12. To be fair, the other ones, the CCI and the Federal, aren't very consistent either, but the Winchester was the worst offender by far. Just a lot of really small pellets. You got a few in there that do measure a number 12 shot. A number 12 is a 50 thousandths diameter, but most of nearly all of these are smaller than that, and some of them are super small. So that's why you can get more pellets into a lighter payload, because they're a lot smaller. While I had these shot shells apart, I did go ahead and take a look at the powder charges. Now, I didn't weigh these in the process of taking these shot shells apart. It was a messy process, so I lost some of the powder to each one, and it wouldn't be fair to give an inaccurate weight. But you can see the Federal and the CCI look kind of similar, but the Winchester is definitely a different powder. It's a lot finer, more like a ball powder, versus the Federal and the CCI. The wads that separate the powder from the shot are also different in all three of these rounds. The CCI uses a fibrous wad with a little plastic sheet on either side of it. The Winchester uses more of a cotton ball looking wad. It's a fiber wad as well, but it kind of looks like a little cotton ball. And the Federal uses a plastic wad. So looking at all three of these, we can see that they are made up of different components. They're not copies of one another. One might think that the crimped Winchester and Federal were just made in the same spot, one with a Federal head stamp and one with a Winchester head stamp, but that's obviously not the case with the different powders and the different wads. And something else that I also noticed was that the Winchester has a 10-point crimp, and the Federal uses an 8-point crimp. So even the crimps are different on these rounds. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about cost. I'll tell you what I paid for these in my local shop. Of course, expense and cost is going to vary depending on where you're at, where you shop, all that stuff. But for the CCI, these were $8.50 a box, but there's only 20 in a box. So that comes to about 43 cents each. The Winchester, I paid $15.89, plus your tax, but that comes to about 32 cents each because this is a box of 50. And the Federal, also a box of 50, were $14.49, which comes to about 29 cents each. So the Federal is the least expensive. The Winchester slightly more expensive than the Federal, and the CCI were the most expensive. That's just here locally. You may see a difference in that where you're at, but in general, the CCI are going to be the most expensive anywhere you look. As far as how they're boxed, the CCI come in this plastic container, like I said, 20 rounds. The Winchesters are just bulk dumped into a box, and the Federal come in this little plastic holder. So now that we've had a look at each of these, it's time to put them on a target and see what they look like. So these are going to be my test guns. This is my Henry H001. This is my Henry H001 GG. This is a garden gun, meaning it's a smooth bore. Doesn't have any rifling in the barrel. This one has your standard 22 long rifle rifled barrel. So we're going to try it in a rifled barrel and a smooth bore that was actually designed to shoot these shot shells. Somebody's going to ask why I didn't test it in a certain barrel length, a shorter barrel, a handgun. Remember, today's video is just about finding out if one of these is significantly better than the other. And we can apply those findings to any barrel length, but I did think it was pertinent to include a smooth bore since it's what it was designed for. Alright, I've got a 3 12 by 18 inch splatter target set up. These change color where the hits are, so it should make our patterns easy to see. And I always link my targets and stuff that I use in my videos in the description below through affiliate links. It doesn't cost you anything more to buy through those links, but they do give me a few cents back to keep videos like this going. These are pest control rounds, so I'm only going to shoot from about 5 yards away. Interestingly enough, Federal labels theirs as a small game load. I would not hunt small game with these. They're good for rats and snakes and things like that up close, but you start shooting at squirrels and rabbits and stuff like that with it, and you're just going to end your game. It's not going to do you much good. I don't know why they label that as small game. CCI clearly puts pest control on theirs, and so does Winchester. All right, here we go. I've got a CCI shot shell here. I'm loading it up. I'm going to shoot these one at a time, just so I can make sure I'm loading the right shell for the right target, so that you guys can see me doing so. But we'll start with CCI at the left, Winchester in the middle, Federal on the right. All right, I've got my Winchester Super X. Got it loaded up. And now for the Federal. All right, let's see what we've got here. So I see one thing to point out. With the Federal, that little plastic wad flew true and hit the bullseye. You can see right there where that little plastic wad went through. But as far as patterns go, I would have to give it to one of these two. It looks like I got more in the bullseye with the Winchester, but the pattern is thinner once you get away from the bullseye, while the CCI, the pattern stayed pretty tight. So pretty close between those two, actually. I don't see a clear winner on this round. You know, smoothbore 22s aren't nearly as common as rifled bore 22s, so maybe they were just saying out of a rifle bore that those crimped rounds shoot so much better. So let's try this. Got a CCI loaded up, same order. All right, Winchester Super X. Federal. All right, let's see what we got this time. So the Winchester clearly had the tightest pattern. The CCI had the biggest pattern, and it's a very even pattern, surprisingly even. You know, no donutting, just a nice even pattern all over the paper. But the problem is, if you're shooting at a rat or the head of a snake, there's just too many. It's spread out too much at 5 yards. You'd have to be closer than 5 yards to get enough hits where you want them. It's just too spread out. The Winchester looks good. Surprisingly good to me. The Federal, while better than the CCI, is still spread out quite a bit. So we actually have a clear winner on that one. And notice that the Federal, the little plastic wad, didn't strike the target this time. So Winchester wins that one. So out of a smooth bore, I would have went with either the CCI or the Winchester. They were about even. But out of the rifle bore, the Winchester definitely a better pattern for shooting at a rat or a snake or something. All right, a little bit of target analysis. I've got the smooth bore targets on the bottom and the targets shot from the rifle bore at the top. If we look at the smooth bore targets, there is not a great deal of difference between any of them. Any of these rounds work well in the smooth bore. I would give the edge to the CCI and the Winchester. But when we move to the rifle bore targets, there's a dramatic difference. Look at that. This is the CCI from a smooth bore. This is the CCI from a rifle bore. Has a big effect on that round. This is the Winchester from the smooth bore. This is the Winchester from the rifle bore. Not much difference. There is a difference, but it's slight. The Federal smooth bore, Federal rifle bore, again, quite a big difference. The Winchester is not affected as much by the rifling for some reason. The CCI, I would suppose that blue capsule grabs the rifling just enough before it breaks up and imparts some spin on that little payload of shot and throws them out like that. It's just a theory. I can't explain it, why it does it on the Federal and not on the Winchester though. Now, with these rifle bore, you know, one time could just be an anomaly. You can get a bad shot pattern here and there for different reasons. So what I did, I set this up 3 more times just to verify, because I don't want to give out bad information based on an anomaly. And all 3 of these were the same. That CCI does not like the rifle bore. The Winchester just wasn't affected by it. The Federal was affected by it. So it's not just because the crimped style is better. For some reason, the Winchester just does better out of a rifle bore than the other 2. And I think that's enough target shooting there to be able to draw that conclusion. So patterns can tell part of the story, but we also need to look at penetration. I've got a chunk of Clear Ballistics 10% synthetic gel here, and I'm going to shoot it with the CCI, then I'm going to spin it. I'm going to shoot it here with the Winchester. I'm going to spin it again and shoot it with the Federal. And then we can look in from the top. This stuff's really clear, and see if any of those have an advantage in penetration depth over the other. I don't expect to see much difference, but let's do this and see if we get any surprises. All right, I'm at about the same distance that I did the pattern testing. I'm going to start out with the CCI. We'll do this in the same order we've been doing everything else. And I'm using the smooth bore so that I can get as much of the pattern into that little block as I can. Here goes the Winchester. And here goes the Federal. So looking down through the top of the block, I do see some differences, but let me get you guys oriented here first. So this is the CCI. This one is the Winchester. And over here is the Federal. Now, when I turned the block to shoot the Federal, I was actually supposed to shoot this side. I had it marked for the Federal, but I shot the CCI and the Winchester, and then I continued to turn the block that way. But anyway, I've got you oriented now, and there's not a whole lot of difference, but there are some differences. The CCI was the most consistent as to where all the pellets stopped, but it was also the least amount of penetration. It looks like about 1.5 inches is where most of the pellets came to rest. The Winchester and the Federal got some deeper penetration than the CCI, but it's also, they also got a lot of pellets that didn't penetrate as far either. It's a little bit messier on those 2. I would give, if I had to score these, I would give the Winchester a slight edge. On on average, these look to be about a 1/4 inch deeper than the CCI. The Federal I would rank second. So let's do that. If I had to score these, I would score the Winchester first, the Federal second, and the CCI third. Even though it was most consistent, it also had the least amount of penetration. So there's a look at that. Make of it what you will, but that's how I see it. So everything you've seen me do today, I've been feeding the rounds one at a time, but we need to see if they'll all cycle through the gun. So that's what we're going to do now. We'll shoot 12 rounds of each through this rifle and see if they'll all cycle through. We'll start out with the CCI. 12 rounds in. See what we've got here. "12 rounds out. Ran great. So with the crimped style, I've heard some people say they have issues with them cycling. And when I'm talking about cycling, I'm talking about cycling through a lever action or a pump action. These will not cycle a semi-auto. You can shoot them in a semi-auto, but you have to manually cycle the action. But some people say these crimped shells where they've got the long brass, and when that crimp part opens up, makes it even longer, and it gives them problems cycling through various guns. Let's see how the Henry does with it. This is the Winchester. 12 rounds in. Rounds out, and I noticed, I don't know if you'll be able to tell it through the video audio or not, but I noticed that those are louder than the CCI were. Cycle those just fine with the crimped cases like that. And now for the Federal. And it cycled those just fine. So no cycling issues with the Henry H001 with the rifled barrel. Of course, this thing cycles almost everything really good, so no real surprises there. But I did want to make sure that it would run all three of those ammunitions. So I was just picking a few of those cases up off the ground. I'll give you a look at them. That's a CCI case on the left, of course. And you can see how much longer those crimped cases are after they've been fired. So which 22 long rifle shot shell is the best? Well, based on the limited testing I done today, and my testing was limited, I only had a small batch of ammunition to pull from, and I only used 2 firearms to test it. But based on that test, the Winchester Super X was the winner. It performed good in both the smooth bore and the rifle barrel. Good penetration compared to the others. Just, to me, it was the best. Now, if you're shooting a smooth bore, it didn't really matter. I just get the cheapest and go with it. The rifle bore, though, and I think that's what most people shoot, the Winchester Super X, hands down. Now, it could vary by lot number of ammunition. It could vary by the firearm. So there's a lot of other factors that you guys might find. In fact, let me know if you guys have had experience shooting this snake shot or rat shot, as most people call it. Which one do you like the best? Let me know in the comments. I'd appreciate that. Also, I appreciate the comments that led me to do this video. You know, I'd never thought about which one of these might be the best. I just figured they were all kind of equal. But that's why I like doing these videos. I learn things. So that's actually all I've got today. I know this was a long video. I look forward to seeing those "this guy talks too much" comments. I haven't saw those in a while. I've only been doing the YouTube shorts, so it's good to be back doing the long form content. Remember, if anybody asks you to give up a little of your freedom for the greater good, we've done enough of that. Freedom is the greater good. I'll talk at y'all again soon.